Okay, so this is part 3, chapter 3 of Treasure Island. So far in the story, we follow the young boy Jim, who lives in a pub in the south of England, and an old pirate has come to stay. So, chapter 3, the black spot. So, what is the black spot? So, as you listen, think about what this is. About noon, I stopped at the captain's door with some cooling drinks and medicines. So noon is midday, 12 o'clock in the day. He was lying very much as we had left him, only a little higher, and he seemed both weak and excited. "Jim," he said, "you're the only one here that's worth anything, and you know I've always been good to you. Never a month but I've given you a silver fourpenny for yourself. And now, you see, mate, I'm pretty low and deserted by all." So low here is like unhappy or in a bad state. "And Jim, you'll bring me 1 noggin of rum now, won't you, matey?" Noggin is like a small glass. "The doctor," I began, but he broke in cursing the doctor in a feeble voice but heartily. Feeble means weak. "Doctors is all swabs." So swabs is not a very common word to use. It says archaic, a contemptible person. So it just means, it's just like an insulting word. We don't use this now very much. It's like a seafaring term from the old days. "Doctors is all swabs," he said, "and that doctor there, why, what do he know about seafaring men? I've been in places hot as pitch, and mates dropping round with yellow jack, and the blessed land a-heaving like the sea with earthquakes. What to the doctor know of lands like that?" So hot as pitch. Pitch is also called tar. It's a black substance that's used on roads. Yellow jack is an old term for, I think, yellow fever or some kind of illness. "And I lived on rum, I tell you. It's been meat and drink and man and wife to me. And if I'm not to have my rum now I'm a poor old hulk on a lee shore, my blood'll be on you, Jim, and that doctor swab." So a hulk is like a shipwreck. And he ran on again for a while with curses. "Look, Jim, how my fingers fidges." So we don't have this word now, but we have a similar word, fidgets, so which means to move around, to not be able to stay still, to fit. He continued in the pleading tone, "I can't keep 'em still, not I. I haven't had a drop this blessed day. That doctor's a fool, I tell you. If I don't have a drain of rum, Jim, I'll have the horrors." So a drain is like a big drink here. "I seen some of 'em already. I seen old Flint in the corner there, behind you, as plain as print, I seen him. And if I get the horrors, I'm a man that has lived rough, and I'll raise Cain." So this is like make a lot of trouble, to raise Cain. Sometimes we say raise hell. "Your doctor himself said 1 glass wouldn't hurt me. I'll give you a golden guinea for a noggin, Jim." So sometimes when he speaks, he doesn't use correct grammar. When he says seen, he should say saw. Or I've seen, but we can't say I seen. But this is how he speaks. It's written how he actually speaks. So some people speak like this, although it's quite old-fashioned. Also like hisself instead of himself. He was growing more and more excited, and this alarmed me, for my father, who was very low that day and needed quiet. Besides, I was reassured by the doctor's words, now quoted to me, and rather offended by the offer of a bribe. "I want none of your money," said I, "but what you owe my father. I'll get you 1 glass and no more." When I brought it to him, he seized it greedily and drank it out. "Aye, aye," said he, "that's some better, sure enough. And now, matey, did that doctor say how long I was to lie here in this old berth?" "A week at least," said I. "Thunder!" he cried. "A week? I can't do that. They'd have the black spot on me by then. The lubbers is going about to get the wind of me this blessed moment." So a lubber is short for landlubber. It's like a big, clumsy person. So it's what sailors call people who don't go to sea. It's an insult. It's quite old-fashioned. And to get the wind of me is like to find out. And we still use this expression now, to get wind of something. The lubbers is going about to get the wind of me this blessed moment. Lubbers as couldn't keep what they got and want to nail what is another's. This is like want to get, nail. Is that seemingly behaviour now, I want to know? But I'm a saving soul. I never wasted good money of mine, nor lost it neither. And I'll trick him again. I'm not afraid on him. I'll shake out another reef, matey, and daddle him again. So shake out another reef. So he always talks in terms of the sea. So to shake out a reef, if you reef your sail, you make it smaller. So to shake out a reef means your sail is bigger and you can go faster. And daddle, I think, is like confuse. Diddle them, like trick them. As he was thus speaking, he had risen from bed with great difficulty, holding to my shoulder with a grip that almost made me cry out, and moving his legs like so much dead weight. His words, spirited as they were in meaning, contrasted sadly with the weakness of the voice in which they were uttered. He paused when he had got into a sitting position on the edge. "That doctor's done me," he murmured. "My ears is singing. Lay me back." Before I could do much to help him, he had fallen back again to his former place, where he lay for a while, silent. "Jim," he said at length, "you saw that seafaring man today?" "Black dog?" I asked. "Ah, black dog," says he. "He's a bad un. But there's worse that put him on." So again, here, bad un means bad one. Being bad un means bad one, bad person. Now, if I can't get away nohow, so again, this is kind of bad grammar, but sometimes people still use phrases like this. Sometimes phrases like this are still used. You can't do that nohow, but it's not correct grammar. You should say anyhow. And they tipped me the black spot, mind you. It's my old sea chest they're after. You get on a horse, you can, can't you? Well then, you get on a horse and go to, well, yes, I will, to that eternal Dr. Swab, and tell him to pipe all hands, magistrates and sich. So pipe all hands means to, again, a seafaring term, it means to gather people together. And he'll lay 'em aboard at the Admiral Benbow. So he'll take them to the Admiral Benbow, the inn, the pub. All old Flint's crew, man and boy, all on 'em that's left. I was first mate, I was. This is a position on a boat. It's like a rank. It's second to captain, I think. I was first mate, I was. Old Flint's first mate. And I'm the only one as knows the place. He gave it me at Savannah when he lay a-dying, like as if I was to now, you see. But you won't peach unless they get the black spot on me, or unless you see that black dog again, or a seafaring man with one leg, Jim. Him above all. But what is the black spot, Captain? I asked. That's a summons, mate. I'll tell you if they get that. But you keep your weather eye open, Jim, and I'll share with you equals, upon my honour. He wandered a little longer, his voice growing weaker. So here wandered is just with his words. He spoke about things without much purpose. But soon after I had given him his medicine, which he took like a child, with the remark, "If ever a seaman wanted drugs, it's me." So here want doesn't mean want as we usually use it. It means like need. He fell at last into a heavy, swoon-like sleep, in which I left him. What I should have done, had all gone well, I do not know. This is quite interesting. So I've highlighted should. Normally we would say here would, which is a bit more old-fashioned, and had all gone well. So this is a nice third conditional sentence. So if things had been different, if something had been different, he would have done this, or he doesn't know what he would have done. but probably I should have told the whole story to the doctor, for I was in mortal fear lest the captain should repent of his confessions and make an end of me. But as things fell out, my poor father died quite suddenly that evening, which put all other matters on one side. Our natural distress, the visits of the neighbours, the arranging of the funeral, and all the work of the inn to be carried on in the meanwhile, kept me so busy that I had scarcely time to think of the captain, far less to be afraid of him. He got downstairs next morning, to be sure, and had his meals as usual, though he ate little and had more, I am afraid, than his usual supply of rum, for he helped himself out of the bar, scowling and blowing through his nose, and no one dared to cross him. So scowling is to make an expression with your face, showing that you're not happy, an angry or bad-tempered expression. And to cross means to go against, so no one would stop him doing what he was doing, stealing rum. On the night before the funeral he was as drunk as ever, and it was shocking in that house of mourning to hear him singing away at his ugly old sea song. But, weak as he was, we were all in the fear of death for him. So we wouldn't use this construction now, it's quite old, but we could say we were scared to death of him. Scared to death we still use. And the doctor was suddenly taken up with a case many miles away, and was never near the house after my father's death. I have said the captain was weak, and indeed he seemed rather to grow weaker than regain his strength. He clambered up and down the stairs. Clamber means like climb, and I think with your hands and feet. Yeah, using both hands and feet. So he needed his hands to go up and down the stairs. And went from the parlour to the bar and back again, and sometimes put his nose out of doors to smell the sea, holding on the walls as he went for support, and breathing hard and fast, like a man on a steep mountain. He never particularly addressed me, spoke to me, and it is my belief he had as good as forgotten his confidences. So here his confidence means a secret, something he'd told. We say tell something in confidence means in confidence that you won't tell anyone else. So here it's like a secret. But his temper was more flighty, and allowing for his bodily weakness, more violent than ever. He had an alarming way now, when he was drunk, of drawing his cutlass and laying it bare before him on the table. But with all that, he minded people less and seemed to shut up in his own thoughts, and rather wandering. Once, for instance, to our extreme wonder, he piped up to a different air. So piped up means start to sing. But we can still use this actually. It's not old-fashioned. To pipe up can mean to start to speak. A different air. Air here is tune, a melody. He piped up to a different air, a kind of country love song that he must have learnt in his youth before he had begun to follow the sea. So things passed until the day after the funeral, and about 3 o'clock of a bitter, foggy, frosty afternoon, I was standing at the door for a moment, full of sad thoughts about my father, when I saw someone drawing slowly near along the road. He was plainly blind, for he tapped before him with a stick, and wore a great green shade over his eyes and nose, and he was hunched, as if with age or weakness. Hunched means to bent over, with his shoulders raised, as if with age or weakness, and wore a huge old tattered sea cloak with a hood that made him appear positively deformed. I never saw in my life a more dreadful looking figure. He stopped a little from the inn, and, raising his voice in an odd sing-song, addressed the air in front of him. "Will any kind friend inform a poor blind man, who has lost the precious sight of his eyes, in the gracious defence of his native country, England, and God bless King George, where or in what part of this country he may now be. You were at the Admiral Benbow, Black Hill Cove, my good man, said I. I hear a voice, said he, a young voice. Will you give me your hand, my kind young friend, and lead me in? I held out my hand, and the horrible, soft-spoken, eyeless creature gripped it in a moment. A vice. So a vice, this is actually spelt wrong. We spell it now with a C, V-I-C-E. A vice is a machine, a tool, a metal tool with movable jaws which are used to hold an object firmly in place while work is done on it. So a grip like a vice is holding very tightly. I was so much startled is surprised, that I struggled to withdraw, but the blind man pulled me close up to him with a single action of his arm. Now, boy, take me in to the captain. Sir, said I, upon my word, I dare not. Oh, he sneered, that's it. Take me straight in or I'll break your arm. And he gave it, as he spoke, a wrench that made me cry out. So a wrench, a sudden violent twist or pull. Okay. Sir, said I, it is for yourself I mean. The captain is not what he used to be. He sits with a drawn cutlass. Another gentleman... Come now, march, interrupted he, and I never heard a voice so cruel and cold and ugly as that blind man's. It cowed me more than the pain, and I began to obey him at once, walking straight in at the door and towards the parlour, where our sick old buccaneer was sitting, dazed with rum. So cowed means, intimidated. Cow, to cause someone to submit to one's wishes by intimidation. This is a bit old-fashioned, but we can still use it. It's still in use. Not very common, though. The blind man clung close to me, holding me in one iron fist and leaning almost more of his weight on me than I could carry. Lead me straight up to him, and when I'm in view, cry out, "Here's a friend for you, Bill. If you don't, I'll do this." And with that he gave me a twitch that I thought would have made me faint. To faint is to lose consciousness, to fall unconscious. Between this and that, I was so utterly terrified of the blind beggar that I forgot my terror of the captain, and as I opened the parlour door, cried out the words he had ordered in a trembling voice. The poor captain raised his eyes, and at one look the rum went out of him and left him staring sober. Sober is the opposite of drunk. The expression of his face was not so much of terror as of mortal sickness. He made a movement to rise, but I do not believe he had enough force left in his body. "Now, Bill, sit where you are," said the beggar. "If I can't see, I can hear a finger stirring. Business is business. Hold out your left hand. Boy, take his left hand by the wrist and bring it near to my right." We both obeyed him to the letter, and I saw him pass something from the hollow of the hand that held his stick into the palm of the captain's, which closed upon it instantly. Palm is the flat part of your hand. "And now that's done," said the blind man, and at the words he suddenly left hold of me, and, with incredible accuracy and nimbleness, skipped out of the parlour and into the road, where, as I stood motionless, I could hear his stick go tap-tap-tapping into the distance. It was some time before either I or the captain seemed to gather our senses, but at length, and about at the same moment, I released his wrist, which I was still holding, and he drew in his hand and looked sharply into the palm. 10 o'clock, he cried. 6 hours. We'll do them yet. And he sprang to his feet. Even as he did so, he reeled. Reel is like to stagger. It's a synonym of sway. He reeled, put his hand to his throat, stood swaying for a moment, and then, with a peculiar sound, fell from his whole height, face foremost, to the floor. I ran to him at once, calling to my mother, but haste was all in vain. So haste is like hurrying, and in vain means to no effect. The captain had been struck dead by thundering apoplexy. So this is an old-fashioned word. I think nowadays we say stroke. He had a stroke. It is a curious thing to understand, for I had certainly never liked the man, though of late I had begun to pity him. But as soon as I saw that he was dead, I burst into a flood of tears. It was the second death I had known, and the sorrow of the first was still fresh in my heart. Okay, so that's chapter 3. So now we know, well, we have more idea. What is the black spot? What does it mean? Maybe you can give me your ideas in the comments. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next chapter, chapter 4, the sea chest.